Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Samantha Reynolds never thought her children would humiliate her like this. Having raised them with patience, love, and discipline, she believed loyalty and respect were immutable values. She was convinced that her home, carefully maintained and filled with family memorabilia, would remain a sanctuary of trust and affection. Yet one morning, she noticed strange behavior from Ethan, Michael, and Lily. Each seemed nervous, distant, as if they were hiding something. Samantha didn't immediately know what it meant, but a dull worry crept into her. She felt, without yet being able to say it, that something unexpected and painful was about to happen. When the truth came out, the shock was overwhelming. Her children, with the complicity of some staff members, had organized a public humiliation of her. Samantha felt a mixture of shame, anger, and disbelief. She didn't understand how the love she had given could be betrayed in this way. The next day, the pain gave way to an icy determination. She knew she had to act. It wasn't just about punishment, but about restoring respect and dignity to her home. In a move no one would have anticipated, she took the drastic step of firing everyone who had participated, directly or indirectly, in this humiliation. She knew this act would be a turning point. It wasn't just an act of anger, it was a reaffirmation of her authority and dignity. Samantha understood that day that sometimes love and steadfastness must go hand in hand, and that betrayal, even from those we love most, must never go unpunished. Samantha Reynolds thought everything was going well in her home. For years, she had crafted an environment of order, respect, and affection. Every detail mattered: the meticulous organization of the living room, the subtle scent in the hallways, the carefully planned routines for each of her children. She told herself that her efforts were paying off, and that Ethan, Michael, and Lily had inherited her values. Ethan, the eldest at 25, was an ambitious and charismatic young man. He had always been able to manipulate situations in his favor, but Samantha believed she could discern his intentions. Michael, the middle, was more reserved and dreamy, often followed his brother's example, but with a hesitation that she interpreted as caution. Lily, the youngest, was lively, curious, and sometimes mischievous, but she always seemed sincere in her emotions. That morning, Samantha had noticed small, unusual signs: a stifled laugh in the kitchen, glances exchanged too quickly, sudden silences. At first, she had attributed them to fatigue or simple distractions. But a vague feeling of unease never left her. She told herself she should remain calm and observe carefully before jumping to conclusions. She spent the day going about her usual business, keeping a discreet eye on her children. Every forced smile, every suspicious movement reinforced the idea that something unknown was about to happen. Samantha felt a silent tension, as if the very air in the house had changed. Yet she would never have imagined that this change would mean betrayal and humiliation. She ended the day thinking that tomorrow might be just another day, nothing more. But somewhere deep inside, a nagging intuition whispered that the apparent calm was just a facade, and that the real storm had yet to break. The next morning, Samantha watched her children more closely. Ethan seemed oddly absorbed in his phone, as if he were secretly planning something. Michael, on the other hand, spent hours cleaning his room with excessive care, and Samantha noticed that he looked at the clock every 5 minutes, as if waiting for a specific moment. As for Lily, she seemed both nervous and excited, laughing out loud for reasons Samantha didn't understand. Samantha remembered the discussions she'd had with them weeks earlier. She'd asked them to respect certain rules in the house, to never embarrass anyone, and above all, to treat the staff and their loved ones with consideration. There was no sign that these principles were about to be betrayed. And yet, her children's behavior gave her an uneasy feeling she couldn't ignore. Throughout the morning, she observed disturbing details: crumpled notes shoved under doors, glances hastily exchanged, and hushed whispers as Samantha approached. Every gesture, however small, suggested to her that a plan was being prepared, a plan that would target her. Yet she refused to panic. Samantha told herself that she had to remain calm, observe, and understand before acting. She told herself that her children, despite their energy and boldness, could never dare to commit a truly malicious act. And it was this almost naive confidence that would surprise her later. As she prepared lunch, Samantha couldn't help but feel that something big, unexpected, and painful was brewing in her house. A part of her, however, refused to believe that her children, whom she had raised with love and patience, could actually humiliate her. That day, Samantha had decided to work in her office, thinking her children would be busy with their usual activities. But when she went down to the living room around noon, what she discovered froze her in place. Her children had staged a scene she never imagined. The living room was filled with friends, neighbors, and even a few domestic staff. Colorful decorations adorned the room, and a screen showed photos of her in embarrassing personal situations. Every detail seemed designed to provoke her embarrassment and humiliation. Ethan, standing in the center, smiled too broadly as he said something Samantha didn't even fully hear, overcome with disbelief. Michael stood to the side, visibly uncomfortable, while Lily laughed out loud, as if participating in an innocent prank, unaware of the gravity of the moment. Samantha felt shame and anger simultaneously wash over her. She had raised these children to be respectful, loyal, and considerate of each other's feelings. And yet, here she was, humiliated in front of everyone by the ones she loved most. Her heart sank, and a mixture of pain and incomprehension prevented her from speaking. She looked at every face in the room, searching for any sign of regret or understanding, but met only guilty smiles and stifled laughter. At that precise moment, Samantha knew something inside her had to change. This wasn't just a passing anger, it was a turning point. She knew she couldn't let this humiliation pass without consequence. A cold, implacable determination began to grow within her, and she vowed that this day would remain a turning point in her home and in her life. After the humiliation, Samantha spent the evening alone in her room, her head full of whirling thoughts. She replayed every detail of what had happened in the living room, every guilty smile, every burst of laughter, and the pain in her chest only grew. She had always believed that her children respected her and looked up to her as a role model. And now, that role model seemed to be crumbling before her eyes. She reflected long and hard on her years of sacrifice, the sleepless nights to ensure Ethan, Michael, and Lily had everything they needed, the patient advice given to guide them through life, the values instilled with rigor and love. All of it seemed to have been ignored or betrayed. The pain was deep, but behind it, a flicker of anger was beginning to ignite. Samantha knew she couldn't let this situation continue. This wasn't simply a matter of punishment, it was a matter of restoring dignity and respect, not only for herself, but also for the home she had worked so hard to build. She began to consider what steps she should take, calmly analyzing each staff member and each child, trying to determine who had truly been complicit in this humiliation. That night, Samantha felt something change inside her. The pain was slowly transforming into a quiet strength, a firm resolve. She knew she had to act, and that no fleeting emotion should prevent her from regaining control. Tomorrow, she thought, would be the day she would show her children and everyone involved that dignity and respect can never be trampled on with impunity. The next morning, Samantha awoke with a newfound clarity. Pain and disbelief had given way to a cold determination. She knew it wasn't enough to confront her children, some staff members had participated, directly or indirectly, in the humiliation. These shadowy accomplices had encouraged, or at least tolerated, the plan that had ridiculed her. She began by observing every face, every gesture. Sarah, her longtime housekeeper, had smiled embarrassedly when she came down to the living room that day. The gardener seemed nervous when he met her gaze, and even the cook, though discreet and efficient, had shown unusual reactions. Samantha understood that some of them had been manipulated by Ethan and his accomplices. She thought long and hard about how to restore order. She knew she had to act cautiously, but also firmly. This wasn't just a punishment, it was a challenge to loyalty and respect in her house. Every decision had to be fair, but firm. As the morning progressed, Samantha established a mental plan. She would summon the staff one by one, listen to their explanations, but remain uncompromising. She wanted everyone to understand that the humiliation she had suffered was not a game, but a violation of the principles she had always defended. That day, Samantha felt a new strength awaken within her. She was no longer just a wounded mother, she was a woman determined to restore respect and dignity to her home, ready to face betrayals with courage and intelligence. Samantha spent the morning walking alone in the garden, thinking about everything that had happened. She thought back to her children's laughter, the knowing glances exchanged with some of the staff, and the humiliating scene in the living room. The pain that had overwhelmed her the day before was still there, but it was now mixed with a cold anger, a silent determination. She remembered all the years of sacrifice, the sleepless nights, the repeated advice, the efforts to instill values of respect and empathy in her children. All of it seemed to have been ignored, betrayed. And yet, she understood that giving in to pure emotion would solve nothing. She had to think, plan, and act intelligently. In her mind, she reviewed each child. Ethan, manipulative and charismatic, had orchestrated most of the humiliation. Michael, hesitant, had probably gone along out of fear or loyalty to his brother. Lily, the youngest, had laughed without fully understanding the gravity of the act, but her laughter had contributed to the humiliating effect. Samantha had to deal with each of them differently, taking into account their personalities and motivations. She also knew that the staff had to be dealt with firmly. Everyone who had aided, abetted, or even ignored the betrayal had to understand the consequences of their actions. Samantha felt a new strength within her, the conviction that dignity and respect could not be trampled upon, even by those she loved most. This inner confrontation was a turning point. She moved from pain to resolve. Tomorrow, she believed, would be the day she would regain control. And when she acted, it would not be an impulsive reaction, but a firm and thoughtful demonstration of her will and her dignity. The next morning, Samantha awoke with unwavering determination. She had spent all night thinking about what to do next and knew the time had come to take action. This wasn't impulsive revenge, but a necessity, to restore respect and dignity to her home. She called the staff into the office one by one. Sarah, the longtime housekeeper, entered first, her face contorted with nervousness. Samantha listened to her apologies, observed her gestures, but remained implacable. She calmly explained that every act of complicity, every knowing smile, or tolerant silence during the humiliation had been a betrayal of trust. At the end of the conversation, Sarah left the room, knowing that Samantha would stop at nothing to protect her authority and dignity. The gardener, the cook, and a few others were summoned in the same manner. Each justified themselves, each tried to minimize their role, but Samantha remained firm. No compromise was possible. Everyone who had participated, directly or indirectly, in the humiliation was fired. Then came the time to confront her children. Ethan, Michael, and Lily stood in the living room, visibly nervous. Samantha watched them for a moment, noting every expression, every gesture. She spoke to them calmly but with a firmness that left little room for interpretation. She explained that the humiliation she had suffered was unacceptable, that respect and loyalty could not be violated, even by them. The children tried to apologize, to justify their actions, but Samantha listened without blinking. She knew the lesson had to be clear, their actions had consequences. That day marked a turning point in the Reynolds household, a moment when maternal dignity and firmness were reaffirmed. Samantha felt, for the first time since the humiliation, a weight lifted from her shoulders. She knew she had done the right thing and that her home would once again be a place of respect and order, even if the scars of this betrayal would take time to heal. After Samantha's decision, a heavy silence fell over the house. Ethan, Michael, and Lily each stood in different poses, each dealing with the gravity of the situation in their own way. Ethan, usually confident and manipulative, seemed unsettled. His usual attempts to charm or distract failed in the face of his mother's relentless firmness. He realized that his ruses were no longer effective and that his actions had concrete consequences. A feeling of shame and frustration settled over him, and he looked down, unable to meet Samantha's gaze. Michael, for his part, felt a mixture of fear and relief. He had gone along with Ethan's plans out of fear of antagonizing his brother, but he had never truly wanted to harm his mother. Now confronted with the reality of his actions, he understood the gravity of his mistakes and the weight of his complicity. He remained silent, his mind reeling, considering how he could make amends. Lily, the youngest, cried softly. She had never really meant to humiliate her mother, but her laughter and behavior had contributed to the humiliating effect. Samantha looked at her with firm gentleness, letting her know that her actions had consequences, but that she could still learn and change. For the first time in a long time, the children saw their mother in a new light, not just as an authority figure, but as a woman capable of firmness, discernment, and dignity. They realized that maternal love did not mean a lack of boundaries and that respect had to be earned every day, not just with words, but also with actions. That day became a defining moment for the Reynolds family. The children began to understand the value of dignity, respect, and responsibility, and Samantha felt that her decision, though difficult, had initiated a profound and lasting change. The following days were different at the Reynolds household. The staff had been replaced by new, more respectful and loyal recruits, and the atmosphere, though marked by recent events, slowly began to return to its serenity. Samantha watched everything with a mixture of vigilance and satisfaction. She knew the lesson had left its mark, and she watched how everyone adapted to the new rules. Her children, meanwhile, were showing signs of change. Ethan, after facing the reality of his actions, began to be more considerate and attentive. Michael, inspired by his mother's firmness, developed the habit of thinking before acting and weighing the consequences of his decisions. Lily, still young and emotional, was gradually learning to channel her energy and act with caution. Samantha felt a deep inner satisfaction. She understood that firmness did not mean an absence of love, but that it could coexist with maternal tenderness. The house gradually regained its fluidity, its laughter, its shared meals, but this time with respect for the boundaries and values she had always defended. She found herself smiling as she watched her children interact. They seemed different, more attentive, more aware of their responsibilities. The initial pain of humiliation gradually transformed into a quiet pride. Samantha had not only restored order, but she had also helped her children understand what respect and dignity really meant. The house, once the scene of betrayal, was becoming a symbol of family renewal. Samantha knew the road ahead would be long, but she felt the foundation was solid, built on firmness, justice, and true love. A few weeks later, Samantha looked at her family with a mixture of serenity and pride. The scars of humiliation were still fresh in their minds, but they had given way to a deep understanding and renewed respect. Ethan, once self-assured and manipulative, was now patient and a good listener. He understood that power and charm weren't enough, and that true strength lay in respect and loyalty. Michael, finally aware of his responsibilities, acted with caution and consideration, taking the time to think before making each decision. Lily, still young, had learned to channel her energy and measure the impact of her actions on others. Samantha knew the lesson had been hard, but necessary. She herself had learned through this ordeal that maternal love did not mean a lack of firmness, and that sometimes, one had to dare to act with determination to protect one's dignity and that of one's home. The Reynolds household gradually regained its peace. Laughter resumed, but with a new tone, filled with respect and consideration. Samantha felt a quiet pride in seeing her children evolve, aware of their mistakes and ready to grow up. She knew this experience would remain etched in their memories and serve as a lasting lesson. Respect, loyalty, and dignity are values that must be defended, even in the face of those we love most. Samantha had not only regained control of her home, but she had also instilled in her children a lasting understanding of responsibility and respect. Thus, from pain and betrayal, a stronger, more aware, and more united family was born. Samantha felt at peace, convinced that firmness, when guided by love and justice, can transform pain into profound and lasting learning.